Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Dropped today, InsideTheBirds.com, and it's brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Great opportunity to PropSwap. Final Four Masters weekend. Next weekend, we'll talk to Cam Rogers on Tuesday. He's the host of the Believe in Tiger Woods podcast. He's their golf analyst. We'll talk to him Tuesday. We'll have the Masters covered for you. But right now, we got football at 4. Andrew DiCecco. We got the draft. We got football. Got a lot of things to talk to Andrew about. It's been a while since I've talked to him, and he joins me right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Andrew. What's up, my man?
Hey, Mike. Doing well. Just sort of preparing for this big storm we're supposed to be getting here.
All right. Well, we know the big storm coming up April 28th. You're all over. I've been watching your Draft Dreams feature on InsideTheBirds.com, and you got a chance to catch up with a lot of cool guys that most people probably don't know a heck of a lot about. So tell the people out there a little bit about Draft Dreams and some of the interesting young men that you've got a chance to catch up with.
Yeah, well, thank you first and foremost. I appreciate that. This concept really was derived from just me and Jeff kind of being in constant communication and trying to find a way to maximize some of my proficiency in being able to identify some of these smaller school prospects and really shine a light on them so that a lot of fans will have something to look forward to on day 3. And really, I wanted to share these guys' story because you hear about the day 1 and some early day 2 guys, but you really never get to hear about some of these small school prospects until they're actually drafted onto your team, and then everybody sort of scrambles to find information. But I really wanted to tell their story and give them a platform in which to do so, and it's been incredible. I mean, we had running back Sincere McCormick from UTSA. We had Danny Gray, a wide receiver from SMU, who ran a 4.33 at the combine and can absolutely fly, and said he could run even faster than that. And then I just recently had one with Jeffrey Gunter, the edge rusher from Coastal Carolina, and we had a great conversation. So I really love how it's really gone, and it's really sort of taken off. I've gotten great feedback from it, and it's always good to hear.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it, and you can see clips of it. Follow Andrew on Twitter at DiCecco NFL or at Inside Birds. They've been putting out a couple of previews, and you get a good chance to kind of see these guys that don't get a lot of publicity. And obviously, as Andrew said, some of these guys could get drafted, and you're like, who are these guys? If you have their backstory, it's like the Olympics. If you have their backstory, you get a little bit more information on those players. Now, I want to ask you, I saw some odds that have come out from Bet Online. This one, very bewildering to me, but I want to get your opinion on it. The favorite to be the number 2 overall pick right now at 2-1 odds is Malik Willis. Can you believe that?
Well, I have a hard time believing that. Quarterbacks always go earlier than expected. Look no further than Mitchell Trubisky and countless other examples. But this year, that would be a tremendous reach to see a quarterback go number 2. I happen to think that Malik Willis is probably the best of the bunch. That said, I think that maybe you might see him go in the top 15. I think 2 is extremely rich considering the prospects that are going to be available.
Yeah, you take a look at some of the other guys there. I mean, it was Willis is 2-1, Trevon Walker's 2-1. Aiden Hutchinson, he's the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick. But the favorite to be the first quarterback off the board is Malik Willis, and it's not close. It's minus 240. You have him. It's Willis, then Pickett, then Corral, then Howe, then Ritter. Do you have Willis that clear as your favorite?
I do, and what really solidified it for me was seeing how he performed and his arm talent at the NFL Scouting Combine. I was really torn between him and Kenny Pickett, but I really wanted to see some of the intangibles on a big stage from Malik Willis, and he does have a live arm, and I think that he has a higher ceiling in which he can really clear, and the intangibles are a little bit more enticing, and I think that he can really he's one of those classic examples. If you get him into a system, I think he can really refine some of his skill sets and really take that offense to the next level. Now, do I think that's going to be instantaneous? No, I don't. but I think that he offers the most promise out of all the quarterbacks in this draft.
Now, after all of the pro days have kind of been in the books here, you had Willis, and of course his video has gone everywhere. Pickett, somehow his hands got bigger. Corral and Howe, we know that those guys have some interesting stories, especially Howe, who at the beginning of this process a year ago was probably the favorite to be the first pick. And then Ritter has opened up some eyes. So what have the pro days done for the quarterback class?
Well, the pro days, you always see quarterbacks really elevate their performance in these pro days because, I think I mentioned this to you a few weeks ago. You'll see a lot of guys that opt not to test certain drills at the combine and save those for the pro day, where they're more in their element or around their teammates and there's the facility that they've been at for at least 4 years. So there's a lot of familiarity there, and I think that when they're on the field and they're comfortable with their surroundings, they're more apt to perform more favorably, and they're more comfortable. But that's what you're really going to see from pro days. If you look at the 40 times from a lot of these guys in pro days, I know it's a separate topic, but you see a lot of fast times, and you start to raise some eyebrows. You're like, oh, everybody's running a 4.3 or a 4.4, huh? But it's because it's that home cooking, as they say.
Yeah. We're talking with Andrew DiCecco here. Yeah, you're right about that. Now, I want to ask you about the pro day thing because we saw David Ojabo get hurt and what that does to him now, because I think he was a guy that Howie Roseman may have had some interest in 15, 16, 19 in that range. What happens to him now?
Well, his talent's undeniable, and it's very, very unfortunate to see that happen to anyone, but particularly, someone who has first-round pedigree and has had his entire, the next 4 weeks to really look forward to and seeing if he was going to see his stock sort of vault over the last month. But I still think he's going to be a late first-round pick. You might see a team that has the luxury of selecting him and knowing that he's not going to be, a viable option for them until later in the season or next season before he can make an impact. You'll see some of those teams that are proficient in stockpiling these players, and they're in position where they can do that. I still think he's a first-round talent, and I think that he's still slot down there, but obviously go about 15 picks lower than he normally would have.
Right. So the Eagles did this a couple of years ago, Andrew, as you know. They took Sidney Jones, who had the same injury, and he was a guy who was probably slated to go right around the 15 in that middle of the first round. The Eagles scooped him up in the second round. Do you think Ojabo would fall to round 2, or the injury be damned, someone will still take him in round 1?
Well, it's certainly possible, but I think you're going to see his talent is immense, and you don't want to let a player like that slip out of the first round if you're a team that needs a pass rusher, or you have a lot of aging pass rushers, or you have there's a lot of depth there and you don't need somebody to play right away. You're going to say, hey, you know what? This guy has these freakish intangibles. He's raw, but he has the size, and I can envision him being an impact player in our system. You want to grab him while you can and then let him sort of recover throughout the season and then plug him in when he's ready. But I think that he's a surefire first-round talent. Would it surprise me if he slips into the second round, the top end of the second round? No, but I do. I think we've seen in the past. You don't want to let those guys really slip out. And you look at the lineman. His name's escaping me. Jeffrey from the Titans. I think he was a first-round pick, and he suffered some sort of an injury.
Yeah, and I feel terrible for Ojabo. I mean, I watched the video, and really the sadness of the video was watching the scouts and everybody just kind of walk away from him as the guy's writhing in pain. And you see this guy's possible draft stock and career drop right before your very eyes. But I think this, we've seen Jalen Smith got drafted in the second round. We saw Sidney Jones, and I think Ojabo probably will get picked up. But I think that'll be an interesting storyline. I want to get your thoughts on Kazir White as we transition to linebacker. I love the deal. I think it's a really good upgrade for Philadelphia. How do you think he fits into their defense?
Do you love the deal because
no. Although here's the thing, Andrew. They play that wonky 3-3-5 defense, and he was more of a safety there. But I think in the long run, that kind of helped him out make the transition to what kind of position he is in the NFL.
Well, you're right. Now, I was just ribbing you a little bit. I like the signing myself. Mike, and the great value. I was shocked actually that he was still available this late into free agency, but he's a player that fits into what they're doing. Is he a little bit undersized? Yeah, but he's a rangy, quick player, sideline to sideline speed, and he's, in my opinion, he's an upgraded version of what they have right currently in Davion Taylor. And it's going to give him a little bit more, Jonathan Gannon, that is, a little bit more flexibility in what he's able to call. Very productive player. I think he had 144 combined tackles last season. Was around the football, floats to it pretty fast, smart player, and he seems to be someone that keeps getting better each season in the league. And I think that that's a great value signing and a plug-and-play impact player for the Eagles.
Okay, so talked to Moshe about this the other day. Your opinion, do you play White and Davion Taylor together, or White and TJ Edwards together, or if there's a linebacker at 15, 16, 19, like a Lloyd or a Dean, do you take that guy and revamp your entire linebacking core?
Oh, I like this question. So I would probably pair Kaiser White and TJ Edwards because they have skill sets that sort of complement one another rather than having two undersized, rangy linebackers at the second level. You're going to see a team be able to exploit them, particularly against the run. So I would probably go Kaiser White, TJ Edwards. And then as far as the linebacker situation goes, in the draft, I would probably still take a linebacker if I'm the Eagles in the second round. First round might be a little rich. I think that you might be able to get, a Chad Muma from Wyoming, or a Christian Harris from Alabama, or the linebacker from Oklahoma, Brian Asamoah. So these are just there's a few options there that I think that they're going to be available at 51 if the Eagles decided they want to take a linebacker in the second round. They can step in and make an impact early in the season. So that's probably the route that I would go right now.
Are you somebody that rules out a Lloyd or Dean for Howie Roseman?
Personally, yes. I just don't envision the Eagles selecting a linebacker in the first round. That's not to say it's impossible, but I still would think that, even the second round might be a little rich for the Eagles given their past history. But I think that you look at when you look back and objectively look at the position, if you're Howie Roseman, you have to improve and you have to get better. It's a glaring blemish on the defense. You have to address it adequately. And I think the way to do that, Mike, is to take a linebacker in the second round and shore that up. And it has to be a player with a diversified skill set. And the three players that I mentioned really would fit the bill and give Jonathan Gannon a whole lot of optionality as far as how he's able to deploy them.
Yeah. Now, by the way, most seem to think that Gannon would go with White and Taylor together to get the two most athletic guys on the field.
Well, I mean, yeah, I could see that as well. But if I was sort of calling the shots, I would want
right.
two guys with differing skill sets that can sort of mix things up a little bit, and the teams they're not really going to be able to exploit them. Whereas if you have two undersized players, you really make it easier in which their plan of attack can be. If you're an offensive coordinator, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I hear what you're saying. I don't know that I would. I don't know the Taylor thing. He's so raw still, and it's like, do you put
right?
But who knows? He came back much improved last year. Maybe he comes back even more improved. Now, Andrew, you were at the Penn State Pro Day. What'd you think of Brisker in person?
Yeah, I was, and I was actually very impressed with Brisker. I thought that he had a little underwhelming performance at the NFL Combine, but I thought that he looked extremely fluid, and he ran well, and he's long. I mean, Jonathan Gannon was in attendance. I had a chance to ask Brisker about whether or not he talked to Gannon and had he had any contact with Philadelphia. And any official visits. He said no official visits as of last week. That's not to say that something didn't change, but he did say that he talked to Gannon that day, which I would assume that he would have, with Jonathan Gannon being there, Brisker being one of the top prospects, it would make sense. But I think that he's another player, Mike, that you could see sneak into the end of the first round, but certainly be a viable option at 51 when the Eagles pick there. And they really need to address the safety position, and that's not one they can afford to let go by the wayside because their options right now, Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, just not good. Kayvon Wallace, they need to get that area shored up. And I think that Brisker gives them a versatile player. They can align all over the defense. He can play corner, as he alluded to in his presser and his little media scrum that day. He can play corner. He can play, that overhang spot and he's really effective in the box. Like, I think that he's a really ascending talent that has not scratched the surface of his capabilities.
Yeah, good conversation, Andrew DiCecco. What you think of the Barnett? You got to. I seem like the fans hate it. I don't look. I'm not a huge Barnett guy, but I have to take myself out of. He makes a lot of mistakes and penalties, but I like the deal for the money and the role. I think he's going to have half the role that he had last year. So I find that to be kind of a smart move for bringing him back as opposed to paying him to be a starter. It looks like they've paid him to be a rotational player. And I wouldn't even be surprised, Andrew, if he's like the fifth guy in the road. You know, I think you have like Milton Williams might get more snaps than him.
Well, that makes two of us, Mike. I mean, listen, it's not a popular, decision, of course, and it's not popular to say that you agree with the signing, but I do. I mean, how could you not? He's been a starter, an effective player. He has not lived up to his first-round billing. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but he's been able to be a solid contributor. He's a young player, and the money was great. And you needed to have another end. You need another body because you can't go into the draft with just having Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham as two defensive ends you can count on, right? I mean, you don't want to have your hands tied and feel like you're compelled to take two defensive ends no matter what. This gives them a little bit more flexibility. Now, do I still think if they need to add to it? Absolutely. Do I think they should take one in the first round? Absolutely. But now you have three players in place there that and sort of filling out the depth chart a little bit. And I thought that was a really good signing. And I do think he's going to be a rotational player. Certainly don't think he's going to be a starter any longer, as the money would seem to indicate.
Right.
And, how could you be against the signing? I mean, I think in a rotational role, he can be effective.
Yeah, and it, interestingly enough, I feel like you bring Barnett back, and he's almost a bridge to a guy like it allows you to take like a David Ojabo, who you'd say, look, we love this guy, but he can't play this year, and we have a bridge guy that can get us to him next year.
Yeah, that's fair. I still think they need an impact defensive end in this season because you want to be able to apply more pressure on the quarterback. They really need that, especially if they don't upgrade areas of their secondary that really need some retooling. And the pass rush is the key to the staple and the key to a good defense. And I think you can never have too many of those. And especially in a year where it's very, the draft is brimming with talent as far as pass rushers go. I think you got to capitalize. If you're the Eagles, you're in position to do so. And there's going to be a lot of options right where they're picking. So I think that it behooves them to really upgrade that area and get a player that can step in right away and make an impact.
All right, football for Andrew DiCecco. Last one, Rams have signed Bobby Wagner, 5-year, $50 million, deal up to $65 million. The Rams are following the same blueprint. Go get the best players we can find and pay them whatever they want.
Yeah, you got to give it to the Rams, man. They're slinging the bat, and they push all their chips in the middle of the table, and they've always been players in free agency, and so that's a good addition for any team, but certainly a team like the Rams that are really equipped to have to win now. And it's a little bit of a contract I didn't necessarily see coming for Bobby Wagner given his age, but he's a productive player and a great linebacker, and he's really going to infuse that defense with yet another talent at the second level. And he would have worked in Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia needed a sturdy veteran in there that can step in and really take a little bit off the plate of T.J. Edwards, who's now their veteran player. But yeah, Rams going all in all over again. Not really surprising on my end.
Yeah, that's a big pickup by them. So Bobby Wagner off the board. Be sure to check out the latest episode of Draft Dreams. Andrew DiCecco hosts that, where he talks to potential NFL draft players, and it's a really good, fun opportunity for you guys to listen to some guys' journey to the draft. That's over on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel, Inside the Birds platforms. You can check that out, and Andrew's back for Football at 4 next week. All right, Andrew, take care, bud.
You too, Mike. Talk soon.